Good morning. How are you? I hope you are well. I am phenomenally brilliant. Glad to be back. This is us back now after a long hiatus, literally 2 month break. Back to our early morning calls. Dr. Sunshine should be on somewhere, but let me just check where she is. She should be on. Oh, there she. I think she went off again. I don't know why, but she definitely is on for, yep, she is. I don't know what's going on. She'll probably come on later. But hey, here we are. Glad to have you all here. I'm hoping that you're all doing fine and all is going on well with you. For me, we are doing phenomenally well. I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to be here with you and to come this morning and transmit this session, which is the beginning of many of our sessions. This evening, let me begin with some exciting news. This evening, I am launching the Neuro Leadership Coaching class. So those of you who will be able to, if you're catching this as a recording, whatever it is, you will be able to share this link with other people and let them know. I will share at the end of this presentation, I will share a link where you can go register to be part of those Neuro Leadership classes. They will be on this evening at 7 p.m. Zambian time. That's 19 hours Zambian time. That's CAT plus 2 or UCT plus 2, which is Central Africa time, or Universal Central Time plus 2. So that's the zone we're on. So any of you can actually connect on other zones and be able to time that. We'll have a recording of that. Now, this particular Neuro Leadership class will be sent to you as a link, but you have to register. It's free, but you have to register for that Neuro Leadership class. I will be walking you through an introductory session of this Neuro Leadership class so that you're able to understand how it works. We are going into this particular class. I'm very excited about it. It's going to be about 12 to 13 sessions of the Neuro Leadership class, which will be shared. That's a paid for class, but the first class is free. So all of you can be able to share. So what I want you to do is, if you want as many people to be able to access this Neuro Leadership class, I want you to make sure that you go to the bottom of this session after the class, copy the link. There will be a whole write-up I'll share with a little link. If you also go on my pages, you will see I have several links which I'm sharing. And what you can do is take advantage of those links and obviously copy what's going on there and then share that with other friends of yours. They have to register. I cannot emphasize enough. You will need to register, and when you register, a link will be sent to you. And I'm happy to inform you that I'll also have a recording which will be shared afterwards to everybody that was or requested or registered in that link. If you do so, you will be able to access those as well. So this is something that's going to be shared openly, and you'll be able to take advantage of that. Let me just see what Dr. Oh, okay, Doc. Good to see you. She's saying our camera can show. Understandable. Probably some glitch. So anyway, Neuro Leadership Mastery. I'm going to be going into the class today and teaching you quite a bit about it. But just before I do that, allow me also to just kind of walk you through what this Neuro Leadership Mastery is. Like, exactly what is Neuro Leadership Mastery? What are you going to be learning in this Neuro Leadership Mastery, and why should you be a part of Neuro Leadership Mastery? Like, what's the big deal? So hold on, I just want to see if I can get the link. I'm there now. No BS, no BS. Where is that? No BS. Sorry, I'm looking for. Yeah, well, I can't see it. Well, I think we'll just stick with what I have here. So here's what you will be learning in the Neuro Leadership class, and then I'm going to get started with the actual training today. This class will have transformational impact, which is basically the idea of harnessing the power of influence and how to get more people to say yes to you. We'll also be dealing with the issue of attitude behavior change, the secret behind lasting behavior change that sticks. Hold on. Excuse me. Whew. And then mindfulness and consciousness. So we'll be teaching you about how you can unlock the secret to mastering your mind and 10xing your performance. Further, we'll also deal with the topic of emotional mastery, which increases your emotional intelligence for a balanced, greater quality of life. So before I go and start really telling you more about that, let's get into the actual lesson itself. Now, many of you may be aware, it's amazing. I'm going to begin from the area of neurosafety, and I'm going to be doing this neurosafety series for a couple of weeks here on my morning calls to just help you get an idea of why is it that in spite of how much, companies and organizations put into, behavior change, into mindset change, why is it so challengingly difficult to get behavior change locked in? I'm going to be walking you through why. But before I do so, I want to set the scene. And I'm going to set the scene by helping you understand the nitty-gritties of what goes on in companies. So remember, there's one very critical component I need to stress. If you really want to understand how best to get a company to perform at optimal level, or even to get individuals to harness their true potential, you need to appreciate the fact that performance of companies is 10% leadership, 90% human engineering. This is true of churches. This is true of any institutions and organizations. If you really want to see people transform at an organic level, that means self-driven transformation. If you really want to see that, the key to making that happen is literally, and I'm not kidding you, literally to engineer their behavior. Now, at one point, I never understood what human engineering, behavior engineering is, but now I have come to understand it in a deep and powerful way, and I've come to really appreciate the implications of human engineering. In other words, how do we get people to behave the way we want to? And to help you really get a very, very powerful picture of what I'm speaking about, I'm going to begin by dealing with an issue here. Have you ever wondered why? I want to get you to think a little bit. Have you ever wondered why that in spite of how much, companies spend on ensuring things don't go wrong, they do? You see, companies will spend tons of money in terms of ensuring that there's enough to lock down all aspects of danger. They will ensure they minimize injuries by putting in place health protocols. They will have disciplinary procedures in place to ensure that they block any kind of scenario where there could be mistakes. They also invest a huge amount of money in training. Everybody knows that. They also spend a ton of money in safety protocols and standards, the ISO certifications. They have all manner of rules in place to make sure that safety issues are priority. They also ensure that they are compliant with legislation. Remember, legislation, a number of industries have very strict health protocols and legislation in place for health and safety. They also have a zero harm policy. They have a whole aspect about safety being part of their values, and of course, best behavior-based safety, which is another form of training. Yet, when all these are done, you still have major disasters. You still have major incidents. And one of the most famous major incidents ever out there has got to be the Deep Horizon incident. Some of you may remember the Deep Horizon incident, which was the largest, most expensive environmental disaster in living history, so in living memory. And those who may have forgotten, off the Gulf of Mexico was an oil rig that exploded and went on to burn for almost a month, and tons upon tons, millions of cubic meters of oil were spilled into the ocean. That oil went and destroyed a lot of life forms along the coast. It was an absolute nightmare. The British Petroleum, which was one of the biggest shareholders of this particular rig, ended up spending and paying off litigation and other costs to the tune of $78 billion. 11 people died, a bunch of people got injured. It was terrible. The company spent billions and billions of dollars in settlement. So my question is, why would such an event take place with that level? And you know what's even more interesting, ladies and gentlemen? Did you know that 2 weeks before that event, about just a couple of weeks before that event, that all health and safety protocols were greenlit? What does that mean? That means the authorities indicated that everything is okay, there's nothing wrong. So imagine, even after the authorities indicated that there was nothing wrong and that everything was okay, yet we ended up with that major disaster. So the question you start to ask yourself is, how is it possible that an institution of that level, British Petroleum, one of the topmost, and then on top of that, the fact that they have so much that they invest in health and safety, and then to crown it all, you literally have a green light, like the safety people came through and they say that it was okay. Everything was in order. They gave it a thumbs up. And then 2 weeks later, major disaster of magnanimous proportions. Why does that happen? So here's what I'm going to explain to you. You got to understand that if you really want to get to the bottom of things, if you really want to see yourself solving major issues, especially around human behavior, cultural transformation, you need to utilize what we call a root cause approach. I do neuropsychological therapy with a lot of my clients, and one of the things I've come to learn, thank you, Yvonne, for being part of our call, and one of the things I've come to learn personally is that if you really want to see 100% behavioral transformation with people, you want to move away from what we call the, what's it called now? The symptomatic approach, because a lot of us utilize the symptomatic approach. So what is this symptomatic approach? It's the approach where you're focusing on the symptoms. You're dealing with the symptoms. This is one of the reasons why I've kind of moved away from the whole idea of counseling. I don't do counseling myself as Rev Walter. I just don't counsel people, maybe my children, but for clients, I don't counsel them. I could take them through therapy. Why? Because I learned that if you really want to deal with an issue and bring about permanent behavioral change, don't deal with the fruit, deal with the root. Go to the causes, forget about the fruit, because the fruit are the manifestation. So here's my point, and I always say this a lot, even with my clients. Behavior, repeat after me, type this down. Behavior is not a root, but a symptom. Or behavior is a symptom of deeper issues. Okay, so you realize that in a lot of places, what do? We go and tend to focus on the behavior. So let me give you examples of behavior from a natural social angle. Somebody is a serial cheat, or somebody likes to cheat in their marriage. When you look at that, many times counseling will focus on the cheating. But therapy, NLP therapy, and what we do, neuroleadership, neuropsychology, we focus on the root. Why are they cheating? So the why is a bigger issue. And many times people will tell you, no, because that person was cheating, or because of this, or because of that. But the irony is, what about situations where they come pure into that situation? There was no cheating, there was no exhibited bad behavior. But over time, this bad behavior shows up. So there could be cheating, there's addiction and gambling, things of that nature. There is just self-sabotage, behavior that always leads to things failing in your life. Why are these things on repeat? And why is it that you try so hard that you keep going back to these bad behaviors? Answer: because you are dealing with the leaves, you're dealing with the fruit. That's not where the problem is. If a tree is producing bitter fruit, you do not want to be focusing on the fruit, because you waste a lot of time. The issue is the roots. So we use what we call the root cause approach. So meaning, when it comes to companies, when it comes to behavior, when it comes to manifested problems in any given organization, company, ministry, personal life, when it comes to those manifested issues, hear me well. It is a human engineering issue. It is a behavioral issue coming from roots. So we even say that a prescription without diagnosis is malpractice, be it in medicine or in business. So if you want to solve a problem, the first thing you must do is diagnose. Because remember, symptoms are an indicator of deeper underlying issues. So remember, somebody has a headache. It could be a number of things. It could be hypertension. It could be stress. It could be a disease. It could be a fever, a flu. It could be malaria. All those are going to manifest as a headache. Now, what many people are doing now, especially when it comes to the issue of dealing with problems like I state them, is that they focus on the fruit. They focus on the leaves. So you get Panadol, you get, Brufen, and you take to solve the headache. That's fine. It will temporarily relieve you, but it's not going to solve the problem. And that, my friends, is why I am so particular about this. I always mention that the real issue when it comes to individuals and what's going on with them is that there's a root at play. You have to understand and diagnose thoroughly to discover what the root problem is. So in the words of Mwinemushi from the Mwinemushi series, get to the root cause. I always like to say that, typical Kopela Bemba language. So root cause, but the root cause is the best approach. Why is this behavior manifesting as it is? If you can find the root to that problem, then you have essentially solved a big problem. You have essentially solved a major challenge. So the key here doesn't lie in dealing with the symptom, but dealing with the cause. So let's go back to organizations just to help you understand. There is a philosophy and an approach, okay? So you've got what I term the leadership culture, okay? Then you've also got the line accountability. So in other words, what is the philosophy of an organization to see to it that true transformation becomes a reality? So let's see this. So when it comes to leadership culture and line accountability, first of all, leaders must create an enabling environment. So how do you create an enabling environment? By ensuring that A, you have the right people. Okay, so meaning the kind of people you bring into the organization matter, because you can avoid disaster and chaos and underperformance by ensuring you have the right people to start with. This is one of the areas where I must say at national and international level here in Africa, we have a very big problem. We really don't have the right people, because many times people are brought in on account of what I call clan-based thinking. And what is clan-based thinking? There are essentially three ways in which clan-based thinking applies here in Africa. The first one is nepotism. People are put in place because of who they know, not because of the merit of being able to do the job. That's the first thing. The second thing, people are put in place because of cronyism. What does that mean? They come in because of patronage. They belong to a particular party, they belong to a particular club, they belong to a particular group. And so based on that, they are then put in place, but then you realize very quickly that these individuals don't carry the capacity to perform those functions. But the worst one, which now in Zambia is rearing its ugly head, and I hate it with all my heart. I don't know why it's coming back in Zambia again. We need a root approach to this particular third one, which all falls under the whole idea of clan-based thinking, which is tribalism. I do not know why in Zambia tribalism keeps coming up, but it's now become quite an issue. It's a simmering problem. It is beneath the surface. The veneer looks calm and collected, but believe me, this ugly specter of tribalism is again simmering under the covers, and it is quite bad. And we need to deal with this thing at root level. You see, it's just that I'm not in charge. If I was in charge, I can tell you how we get rid of tribalism once and for all. I'm not here to talk about that, but I'm just telling you that the right people in many of our organizations aren't there. And the primary reason is nepotism and cronyism. So people are put because of the parties they belong to, and people are put because of the relatives they know. And so even when you look at the quality of performance, it's poor to mediocre. Why? Because those individuals can perform. And even when intervention comes from some of the directors and leaders, when they realize, okay, you know, Mr. B has a challenge. I think we need to, you know, end his contract. When his contract is done, we need to end his contract. You find even when they want to end the contract, what happens? A call from higher sources comes in and says, hey, we know, you know, you're trying to get rid of Mr. Banda. Can you please just put him back? Or Mr. Piri or Mr. Hammons or whatever. Can you put them back in there? And so you find that the directors become crippled and they can't perform. And I tell you, this right people thing is a huge environment issue. If you can't get the right people, it doesn't matter how good the leadership is, you're not going to perform. The second enabling environment factor is the right tools and equipment. You know, tools simplify work. That's what it is. Equipment helps to make heavy loads easy. Now, if you do not have the right tools and equipment, it doesn't matter how great your attitude is, you're not going to perform. And so again, this is where we indicate that there's a big need for the bringing in of the right equipment and the right tools, then also the right procedures and systems. So systems are huge. If you don't have the right systems, you will be boggled by inefficiencies and bottlenecks. So again, systems are extremely crucial for performance and leadership management, and the culture creates that. So if you don't have the right procedures and systems, and procedures is under HR, that's admin. So admin is supposed to put in place procedures that are effective and efficient. We've sang about effectivity and efficiency for a long time. And for those who may still not get the difference, being effective means doing, getting the job done. That's what being effective is. And being efficient, using the least amount of resources. So you can get the job done, but if you're going to use a lot of resources, then you are not resource sensitive, and therefore you will run out of resource to perform. So you need to make sure that you're doing this effectively and efficiently. And so again, the enabling environment by leadership is what brings about right people, right tools and equipment, and right procedures and systems. Unfortunately, we are in an environment where these things are horrendously difficult to effect. Horrendously difficult to effect. So you see that because they're so difficult to effect, what do you then get? A culture. So this culture can be a nightmare. I'll get around to that. Then the learning organizational concept. What is the learning organizational concept? It's the idea, okay? This is the idea that you have a no repeat process, a no repeat principle. So what is a no repeat principle? So there are two things here. So what's a no repeat principle? A no repeat principle is one where when you do things wrong the first time, that's a mistake. So you got to understand that. So when you do things wrong the first time, that's a mistake. But when you do things wrong the second time going forward, that's a decision. I got to pause right there because that's profound. There is nothing like no things didn't work. From the second mistake going forward, it's a decision. And it's either a decision at leadership level or at management level, director level, management level, or blue collar executional level. But somewhere in that structure are decisions to repeat the mistakes. So that becomes a huge question for every one of us. Are we doing this on purpose? My answer is a big fat yes. So if the error is done the first time and we learn from it and we make sure we do it right, then that solves us. But if we don't do that, then that becomes a culture. First, it becomes a decision, and then decisions repeated over time form culture. Can you believe that? Now, people say, what is culture? Culture is essentially beliefs, nuances, behaviors, habits, models, all these things that pretty much form a way of operating, which we call culture. And I can tell you here that when we have a no repeat principle, you will have a culture of excellence. But when you have a repeat principle, it becomes a culture. And people deliberately do things wrong, either at a subconscious level or at a deliberate official level. But remember, if the enabling environment is messed up, you got the wrong people, you got the wrong tools, you got the wrong procedures and systems, definitely you will perpetuate the mess. And you see, the other issue that makes learning organizational learning so powerful is the operational discipline. So my question is, what is the operating discipline in your organization? How do you deal with the no repeats? Do you even have the no repeats principle? And how do you deal with people who are wrong? How do you deal with tools that are wrong and equipment that is wrong and procedures that are wrong and systems that are wrong? Do you have a methodology in place and principles to deal with that? How do you handle the wrongs? But more importantly, when people do wrong things, what's the disciplinary procedure? How do you create a zero error environment? Of course, you can never have a zero error environment, but how do you create an environment where people become serious with what they do? In behavioral science, it is taught that two ways to maximize and guarantee transformational change in an organization is, one, to emphasize the consequence of bad decisions or bad behavior, to showcase the scenario, what happens with bad decisions and behavior. And then two, to incentivize good behavior. So those are your two areas. One, to show the consequences of bad behavior, and to emphasize good behavior. So here's how bad behavior is emphasized. Is emphasized in order for people to understand. If you want to see behavior change, whether it's organic or it's cosmetic, you got to demonstrate what happens if people do things wrong. One of the most interesting examples I ever heard was from, of all people, Vusiku Tembikwai, who spoke about, in the old days, when you wanted to demonstrate the consequences of bad behavior, you had to publicly punish someone. So the public punishment of an individual and taking them through this horrendous process became such a massive deterrent. In the old days, they were, of course, quite barbaric, unlike today. So they used to do things really, really dramatic. But I can tell you, one of the things that they would do, which was very, very effective, was the public display, judgment, and execution of criminals. So after they are done with you, publicly, everybody hears what you did wrong, then they would now mete out your punishment and sentence. Then when they're done with their sentence, what do? They then hang you publicly and then burn your body and keep it there the whole day. Now, I know that's very barbaric, but the point is, it really became a deterrent. Even when people in the future were contemplating bad behavior, they remembered, the repercussions are very bad. So again, in any organization, if you want to reinforce good behavior, the first thing is you've got to openly and publicly demonstrate what happens to people with bad behavior. So of course, in the old days with dictators and all manner of people, they would do that. If you go to the United Arab Emirates or you go to Saudi Arabia, adulterers and especially pedophiles and rapists would be publicly executed and their bodies would be hung the whole day in public for everybody to see on a crane. I know that's very, very dramatic and evil, but the point is, it's a huge deterrent. That's why in Saudi Arabia, you can leave your keys in the car. In Dubai, in the Arab Emirates, you can have your keys in the car. You can leave your groceries out in the street. No one will touch them. Why? Because of the deterrence. So discipline plays the same role. If you are a leader, okay, so if you are a leader and then you are sleeping with the workers, how are you going to effect any discipline there? You can't, because then they are sacred cows, and that kills the overall culture of the place. Now remember, to reinforce good behavior, you need to reward it, and that's where incentivizing of good behavior happens, and that's a whole other process. But more importantly, also shared values. If you can find a way to get values to be shared, in other words, all individuals have a united aim, and you reward both at a public level in groups as well as individuals. So one of the bad management styles for a lot of people is the one where you create silos and then isolate and then kind of make favorites. That's a very bad way to manage, because what that does is it creates competition within, and it creates interdepartmental wars. You don't want that. What you want is shared values. Think of a football team. They all are aiming to score goals. But remember, some goals are scored by one person. But even though that one person scores the goal, everybody is shared in their values. They are all fighting to get that ball to the strikers in front, who then make the score. So in business, in enterprise, in organizations, in institutions, you want that kind of setup as well. where everybody has shared goals. So remember, what's the learning environments? Number one, the no repeat principle. Number two, operational discipline principle. Number three, shared values principle. These three things are extremely profoundly powerful. And when they're done well, they make a huge difference. So on that note, I want to thank you guys for being part of our call this morning. Remember to share the link I'm going to share later on. That's to the free session this evening. I'm picking this same topic up in the evening and going really further because I'm doing 2 hours in the evening of this. We're going to be going into setting the scene. So you will be able to learn so much under the neuropsychology coaching class. So on that note, tomorrow, Dr. Sunshine Sylvia will be here with her session, and these 8 o'clock sessions are back. So we're now calling them 8 o'clock, not 7:30. So we're now doing 8 o'clock. So be sure to join us tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. And every week when it's a working day, we will be here to share with you. Thank you all for being part of this. Remember to share this with people. Tell them, guys, there's some deep stuff we're going through. You want to learn. When you join me, probably on Wednesday or whenever, we're going to be talking about getting back to basics and workplace culture and leadership. So you will certainly benefit. But if you join me this evening, I'm going all the way through. So you will gain so much insight. Remember, you must register to be part of the evening. You can't just, there's no link I'll share out there. You have to register. When you register, the link will be sent directly to your WhatsApp and you will be able to access. So on that note, thank you guys. Have a great one. I will certainly catch you tomorrow when we are with Dr. Sunshine as she does her part. God bless. Cheerio.